let's talk about how to fire somebody the right way. My name is Natalie Dawson. I am the co-founder of Cardone Ventures. Here at this organization, we have over 300 employees that have been hired and have stayed, but we have probably 100 that are no longer with our organization. So I am an expert in getting rid of the wrong team members. Now, that's a little nuanced there, the wrong team members. They were the wrong people for our role. They were the right people for somebody else's business, but they were the wrong team members for us. And I want to walk you through how we do this in a way that doesn't make it uncomfortable, that doesn't make it difficult for you to address the issues, and can make it unemotional as firing somebody can be. So let's dive into this. The way that we recommend doing this is called a performance reset map. I'm going to walk you through the steps in the performance reset process so that you can feel really confident that you did everything that you needed to do to set somebody up for success. You gave them the right amount of chances, but you're not finding yourself debating whether or not it was you or it was them who was the problem. And oftentimes, it might be you. You might have not done what you needed to do to set them up for success. So I want to get you confident in knowing, not guessing. I want to get you confident in knowing that you're picking the right team members, that they are staying on for the right reasons, and that you're not wasting your time with people who just aren't interested in the role, aren't interested in doing what it takes. The first step is ensuring that you have actually laid out expectations. The way that you ensure that you've laid out the proper expectations is through regular one-on-ones. It's through having an established job description. It's through having metrics that you measure that role by. And ideally, you're doing some sort of cycle of a performance review, and you're really giving good, actionable feedback whenever something goes wrong. That's how you know that you have the steps in place to be a good leader and to be giving your team member every single shot that they have at being successful in your organization. Now, assuming you've done those things, it's a big assumption, and if you want more information on those things, that's not what this video is for, but you should get a copy of my book, because my book dives into all of these details. My book is called Teamwork: How to Build a High-Performance Team, and it has all the information on job descriptions, one-on-ones, annual performance reviews, the email templates that I use to facilitate all of that, the worksheets that I use to actually implement those things. So go to cardoneventures.com/teamwork and get a free copy of this awesome book in your inbox. Now, back to how we reset to eventually know how to fire somebody the right way. Once they have demonstrated that they're not able to hit their metrics or they're not fulfilling their obligation to the organization in the function that they're in, the first way that you engage with this team member is by resetting them. Now, a reset is a simple conversation. It's saying, hey, Joe, I see that you didn't submit your metrics for this week. Metrics are due every week by 5 o'clock so that we can go through and assess all of these things that need to happen by Monday to ensure that we have the week set up for success. So you didn't submit them by 5 o'clock on Friday. Did you know that you needed to submit them by 5 o'clock on Friday? And if Joe had no idea that he was supposed to do that, the expectation was never set, you've reset him by saying, okay, moving forward every Friday by 5 o'clock, Joe, you gotta submit this. Are you clear on that? And Joe says yes. You have now officially reset with him. Now, if Joe said, yeah, I knew that I was supposed to do this, and whatever reason came up, I was unable to because of a family emergency, I just forgot. You know that you did the right steps to begin with to set the expectation. In the previous situation where we didn't actually have clarity with Joe that he was supposed to do this, you should probably look back at the job description, what you're talking about in the one-on-one, because clearly he didn't know that he was supposed to do that thing. You can't be upset with a team member who didn't know that they were supposed to do something because you never told them that they need to do it. That's not really the function of performance improvement, because the person who should be improving their performance is you by setting up better expectations. So you're looking at the different buckets and the levers that you're turning in order to make this process run smoothly. So it's not about Joe being a bad person, it's about a process that wasn't followed and then can get corrected. So let's say you have this reset with Joe, and Joe didn't know about this expectation. He now knows, he's verbally committed to you that he knows and understands that by Friday at 5 he has to submit his metrics report. The following Friday rolls around. It's 7:30, Joe still hasn't submitted his metrics report. Monday comes around and it's at the end of day Monday and he still hasn't submitted it. This is when you would initiate the verbal warning, because you have already told Joe that this was the expectation and now he hasn't done it a second time. Hey Joe, the reason that it is so important that you submit your metrics by Friday is so that the entire team can have the clarity that they need starting the week on Monday and being set up for success for the next 5 days of everything that needs to happen in order to ensure that they're successful. So when you don't submit it by Friday, it really impacts the team. That's the vision. And I'm following this verbal warning document that you can find in Teamwork. If you haven't already downloaded Teamwork, it's cardinalmentors.com/teamwork. This is faux free. You're welcome. Okay. So you're saying the vision is, I want you to send this report because it is that important to the organization. It's not some silly thing that is just like a check mark item that you have to submit it for the purpose of submitting it. It's actually important and allows our team to be set up for success. The issue, as on the verbal warning sheet, is that you're not currently doing this. It's been 2 times now, and it's serious enough that I have to give you this verbal warning because it can't continue to happen. The next part of this verbal warning is the team member's commitment. So what are you asking them for? Well, in this case, you're asking Joe to submit this metrics report by the end of day on Friday. It's that straightforward. You don't have to get super fancy with what the team member commitment is. The manager commitment, because you're asking him to do something. Now, what are you willing to do to ensure that Joe is set up for success? Maybe the manager commitment is, hey, I'm going to ensure that you and I have a touch base on Friday so that you have all of the data that you need to get this metrics report submitted by Friday at 5 o'clock. We're going to have a short little meeting. We're going to make sure everything's great, that you are confident in how to put this together, and I will be available to have you ask any question that you might have. This gives you the opportunity to coach Joe, to see what Joe is running into in his challenge with getting this metrics report. Now, if it's something more serious than a metrics report and Joe isn't able to hit his call conversion because Joe is in a sales function, your manager commitment would be, hey, I'm committed to helping you by reviewing some of your calls so that we can get you to where you want to go. Remember, the idea of performance improvement is that the team member actually improves their performance. So the manager has to be willing to do something in order to help coach and guide so that the performance actually improves. That's why we lay it out this way. You're establishing what the issue is, you're getting into the vision, why is this important, you're asking the team member to do something different, you're willing to do something different in order to help ensure they're set up for success, and then you sign the verbal warning. You say, okay, gotta file this. If your company is big enough, you'd say, I have to submit this to HR. This is a verbal warning. If you don't fulfill on your commitment to this, the next step that we're going to be moving into is a performance improvement plan. So I really want to make sure that you're clear in your commitment, because if we have to have this conversation again, it's going to be even more serious. We're going to move to performance improvement plan. Do you understand that, Joe? Joe's like, yep. Okay, great. Employee signs it, manager signs it, you date it, and send it to HR, or if you're HR, you just put it in your file for Joe. Now, Joe was able to do it 1 week later, but 2 weeks later, Joe again did not submit the metrics report. Okay, now it's serious enough. Unfortunately, we have to have this next conversation, which is the performance improvement plan. You'll notice the difference between the verbal warning and the performance improvement plan is very minimal. The only difference that we recommend is that you actually have execution steps listed instead of just having Joe sign. So what you're doing there, by still identifying the issue, still going through why this is important, identifying team member commitment, identifying manager commitment, but then saying, what are the specific execution steps, the measurement that we are going to use in order to ensure that those things are happening, and the date that those things are going to happen by. You're now actually creating a next level plan. So if any of these things aren't happening by the way that they are going to be measured and at the time and the date in which was specified, The next step after this is termination. So these execution steps are incredibly serious, and for most states in the United States, for documentation purposes, this is what's required to be able to show that you went through the process of coaching and that they didn't actually fulfill on their function to fix the very specific things that were measured and by the date that they were supposed to be measured by, to properly fire them and have the correct legal documentation to do so. So again, that's the only difference between a verbal warning and a performance improvement plan. I guess I misspoke on that because there is one other difference. With the verbal warning, the next step was a performance improvement plan. After the performance improvement plan, this is a 3 strikes and you're out, Joe. So after this, if he is unable to move forward with those execution steps, unfortunately, Joe no longer has the opportunity to work in your organization. Now, I'm telling you this because when you create this structure inside your business that is so logical and is measured and is communicated and expectations are clearly set, when it gets to the point of firing somebody, sure, your palms are probably still going to be sweaty. If I'm honest with you, my palms still get sweaty when I have to fire somebody. I don't like the feeling. It's never fun. But they didn't do what was clearly stated that they needed to do. It's not some surprise. It's not like I didn't give them feedback and then one day just make this decision and it's a final decision because I'm emotional. There is no emotion in this conversation. Maybe you're sad that this happened, but it's not like, oh, I can't believe you didn't do this. It's like, you no longer have the opportunity to work here because your role here was supposed to serve this specific function, and you have now demonstrated over and over again that you're not able to perform that function. And unfortunately, we have to prioritize the needs of our clients and the needs of our team members by putting somebody in this function who can do these things. And you've now demonstrated too many times that you cannot do these things and you're unwilling to change this behavior. At that point, yes, your palms can be sweaty because it's unfortunate that this is happening and it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but you did everything that you needed to do. Giving somebody 3 strikes, 3 opportunities to fix something is more than enough for you to make a decision as to whether or not they shouldn't be in your organization. If somebody's going to do something 3 times, it creates a trend, and we don't need that sort of trend pushing against us as we're trying to grow our businesses. So as our performance management roadmap shows, once we go from performance reset to verbal warning to performance improvement plan, if Joe still does not submit the metrics report on time, you have to move that conversation to termination. That is the responsibility of you as the leader, you as the business owner, to actually do the things that you say that you're going to do. If you tell somebody, hey, if you do this again, you no longer have the opportunity, and then they do it again and you don't, you're undermining yourself to them, you're undermining yourself to the culture of the organization, and you're undermining yourself to you. And the termination conversation should be fairly straightforward. There shouldn't be a lot of emotion and there shouldn't be a lot of time spent on it because it's very obvious by the 4th time that Joe isn't demonstrating that he can do something, Joe knows that he is going to get terminated. There shouldn't be a question about it. So you sit down with Joe and you say, unfortunately, for XYZ reason, you no longer have the opportunity to work inside this organization, and then you move through the rest of your termination process of getting all of his things, getting access to passwords, making sure that he's removed from certain accounts, so on and so forth. So this has served me really well because instead of being the business owner who gives too many chances and is spending so much time coaching and making excuses for somebody, I now have a framework that I can trust and I can rely on that 3 strikes and you're out. Okay, that's my policy. That's my rule that we stick to. Everybody in the organization now knows that this is the rule. So when somebody does start to do a 4th and a 5th and a 6th time, I know that I'm violating my own policy and I have to get back in my own policy. If you're on the other side where one time somebody does something wrong, or maybe they do something wrong 2 times and all of a sudden you're like, oh, they're no good, they're useless to me. Well, did you ever actually give them what they needed in order to be successful? Did you coach them? Did you have some commitment where you were going to help them get better at the thing that they were struggling with? Once you've gone through those steps, then you can feel good that you didn't just discriminately decide to get rid of somebody who could have been a great performer, who could have been an awesome team member if you would have just invested the time in helping give them coaching and feedback in order to get there. As I mentioned in my book, teamwork, I go through all of the setup process, but I also give you these exact forms for you to be able to do this inside your business. So if you don't already have a copy of Teamwork, you should get it. Go to cardoventures.com/teamwork. Thank you for hanging out with me on this video. I'm curious to know what your termination process has looked like and if this would fit inside your company. Let me know in the comments, and looking forward to seeing you next time.